Okay, go. Man, if I had a nickel for every late 90s, early 2000s animation-inspired speedrunning-based platformer that came out 7 months apart from each other, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's kind of weird it happened twice. Pizza Tower and Neon White are 2 sides of the same coin. They both feature speedrunning gameplay that rewards finishing levels under a certain amount of time. Level design filled with depth and accommodation for multiple different playstyles, so the deeper your understanding of the game's mechanics are, the faster you can move through the level while still enjoying the levels as a brand new player. Goofy jokes and gags that fit within the tone of each respective game, fast-paced groovy soundtracks that really hit that vibe of must go fast, animated intros that take inspiration from the animated TV shows and music styles each game is inspired by, and they both even have guns! They're basically the same game. I'll admit it, on the surface, these 2 games don't really look anything alike, but the overall big picture gameplay loop is nearly identical to each other. That gameplay loop being about traversing a wacky-tabacky straightforward maze-like world as fast as possible while juggling new mechanics within each set of new levels. But the similarities between the 2 run much deeper than just the gameplay loop. It's all in the aesthetics, baby. Zaza Tower hits that late 90s Nickelodeon Cartoon Network aesthetic. Ren and Stimpy, Ed, Edd n Eddy, Real Monsters, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Rocko's Modern Life, Cow and Chicken, other cartoons I can't fully remember at the moment. I feel like there's probably some cat dog in there.
Never mind.
And of course the gameplay takes inspiration from Wario Land and old school Sonic the Hedgehog games, and even directly referencing and using a character from an obscure PS1 game as a power-up. What a game.
Joining us live at the barnyard is correspondent Charles Chicken. Charles?
This is Charles Chicken reporting live. I don't like being here. I'm frightened.
Don't worry, that's normal.
White Castle hits that Y2K, more Japanese media-centric aesthetic. Toonami bumpers, Bleach, the Dreamcast and early 3D Sega, Soul Eater, My Chemical Romance, Naruto, basically all of Hot Topic squeezed into a game. Its moving and shooting can be compared to something like Quake's speed and bunny hopping, and maybe even some of the parkour from later mid-2000s titles like Mirror's Edge. But honestly, the best way I can describe the game is it's a smoother version of Counter-Strike surfing? And I know that sounds like it could be a negative comment, but I promise the game's sweet. Or, as the creative director of the game, Ben Esposito describes it, the game is made for freaks.
The game is designed to be really accessible, so it's not like you have to be a speedrunning freak to play this game, but the real freak is like the person who appreciates kind of like the underloved, weird, underappreciated media that the game kind of is meant to celebrate. And so it's more about an aesthetic freak.
Made for Freaks is actually a really good way to describe both of the games. Both of them feature so much high energy animation and gameplay, and there's always so much going on visually, acoustically, and game designingly. You kinda have to be a bit of a goofy, quirky, wacky, nutty, weird oddball to fully appreciate and enjoy them. Probably explains why I like the game so much. I don't mean that negatively, of course. I mean that in a way that one must be fully ingrained in the underground art entertainment scene of the past and present day in order to fully appreciate all the aspects these games have to offer. Both games feature the tightest, most speedrunniest inducing soundtracks ever produced. Za Spire's sound was produced by Mr. Sauceman, Post Elvis, and Klasky Jito, which is a name that sounds an awful lot like the animation studio for Rugrats, Real Monsters, the early Simpsons seasons, and Duckman, Klasky Chupo. Which is a studio, you know, all about old 90s cartoons, which look eerily similar to Pizza Tower's animation. Coincidence? I think not. Alright, that makes the second outdated cartoon meme reference in the video. Good work, Jacob. That's some real good editing. Sounds of cartoon noises, different musical styles and instruments for each song, Wario Land sound effects, just a general atmosphere of tomfoolery. Of Tom Pizzery. The soundtrack remains fast-paced, unique, and fun to listen to while still being reminiscent of old 90s and 2000s cartoons. Each level has its own song, the sound effects and power-up noises fit with the musical tone of each individual level, and the game is constantly using sound effects from old cartoons or sounds that are just incredibly similar to them. Thank you guys so much for putting this in the game, I love it. On the flip side, Light Bright's soundtrack features breakcore, drum and bass, and an overall feeling of future sounds of the past. I'm not really sure what I mean by that either, but it makes sense in my brain. You'd understand if you listen to it. And it's all produced by Machine Girl. Fast tempos, otherworldly instrumentation. It's basically the sound effects and menu startup noise of the Dreamcast turned into a full game soundtrack. During gameplay, the music wants you to keep going faster and faster, but during the quieter moments, the sounds and songs of Neon White are filled with a surreal, ethereal quality that makes you want to listen to them forever.
You can never be a true gamer if you only ever play on easy mode.
Or maybe I'm just a really big fan of Machine Girl and I like their music too much. Go listen to Machine Girl and the folks who worked on Pizza Tower's music. They're all utterly spectacular composers. Along with their fast tempo soundtracks and experimental sounds, both games also have a strong focus on humor. Zaza Tower has zany slapstick and referential humor. Peppino stretches, squashes, slats, gets cheesed, flattens, blown up, set on fire, gets cheesed again, gets a gun. Really, any and all manner of cartoon caricature happens to him, and it always aligns with the gameplay and the visual style. All this alongside goofy, exaggerated illustrations before levels, funny faces, and general over-the-top animated shenanigans. Side note, I love all the illustrations before levels. They really do feel like a title card for a cartoon, and it's always a really good art. Neon White has a bit of that slapstick charm Pizza Tower has, but it focuses primarily on its quirky writing and referential humor.
The kind that will catch a girl's spit with his mouth.
Okay, I know a decent amount of criticism for Neon White is for the story, and specifically for the cringy jokes and the references it makes, but the sexual jokes and odd dialogue stems directly from the dubbed anime of the 2000s.
I like 'em ripe and luscious with curves like that, see? And big, but not too big, know what I mean?
I know not everyone will vibe with this sort of humor, and it's understandably so, but it doesn't take itself too seriously, so we shouldn't take it so seriously. It's charming how the game wears its love of pop culture on its sleeve, and all the voice actors knock each and every line just out of the park.
You are my Sasuke, man. The darkness to my light.
Fun fact, the song White starts to sing in the karaoke side event is Bullet with Butterfly Wings by the Smashing Pumpkins, a classic late 90s grunge song.
The world is a vampire.
And it was even used in one of the trailers for Dead Space 2. Alright, that makes the third video on this channel where I've talked about the Dead Space 2 trailers. Not bad so far. Good start. Better keep up that pace. One's inspired by 2000s cartoons and American media. One's inspired by 2000s anime and Japanese media. But they're both about going fast, pushing your limits, and just having a good time. They also both have references to horror games about obscure 90s childhood toy animals. That's interesting. And both games take inspiration from the quote underground unquote media of the 2000s to create two experiences that seem vastly different on the surface, but are really kindred spirits. I'm willing to bet the creators of both games are within their mid to late 20s, grew up during the late 90s and 2000s, and are now coming into the creative age. Just like me! The art we experience in life, especially that art within our adolescent and childhood years, often plays a huge aspect in the creative work we make in the future. The breakthroughs and foundations of the past are now making brand new experiences for the present time and the future. What inspires us 10, 20, 30, 50 lifetimes ago can now make brand new things today and inspire us 10, 20, 30, however many years into the future. And that's fucking beautiful, man. God, I'm excited to see how these games will inspire others to make new things too. Maybe this whole video game thing, maybe it's not such a bad thing after all.
Video games.
Alright, now let's address the elephant in the room, because there's obviously some pretty massive differences between the games, and they don't look anything alike at all to most people. So rather than just comparing, now let's contrast the titles, because after all, it wouldn't be a proper juxtaposition if we didn't, now would it?
Duality. That's really deep, Ralph.
Thanks, Sonic.
Pizza Butt is a 2D platformer. We on Night is a first-person shooter slash platformer slash visual novel.
Mr. White?
Little Caesars has a bare-bones, basically non-existent story with no voiced dialogue, aside from the screaming, of course. While Light Bright has a more traditionally told story with cutscenes, fully voiced dialogue, and relationship meters. Peppino has the funny Courage the Cowardly Dog scream, but Mr. White has the dulcet tones of Steve Bloom.
They may be freaks, but they're my freaks. supposedly.
The voice actor for many anime characters that aired on Cartoon Network's late-night anime block, Toonami. Steve Blum literally voiced the host of Toonami, Tom, and is most famously known for voicing the protagonist of Bulletstorm.
Kill my dick? I'll kill your dick!
Pizza Tower has a level guest starring Mort the Chicken, who's a mascot from a PS1 game from the early 2000s. And Neon White has Steve Blum, a huge voice in dubbed anime from the 2000s. Curious, references from the same cartoon channel at the same time period, and cameos from obscure games and obscure voice actors? It's almost like they were inspired by the same things or something. Here, let me reiterate once again. The inspirations of the Oh, I see what he's doing. He's repeating himself and cherry-picking references for emphasis again. Yeah, this part blows, just skip ahead a little bit. They each have very different approaches to their overall gameplay structures. Papa John's aims for quality over quantity, as there are only 20 levels, but each is filled to the brim with content, gameplay gimmicks, and unique visuals for each and every environment, going so far as to have many cutscenes and different enemies in each level. 1 second you're taking taxis around Pig City, and the next you're playing golf with a Primo Bird. Leon Smite aims for quantity over individual quality, as there are more than 100 levels, each combined into different sets, or missions as the game calls them. So each set of missions will have their own unique gimmicks, visuals, and sounds, but individual levels usually don't stand out on their own too much compared to Peppino's adventure. Each level has one collectible, which is dramatically different from Tower's overload of collectibles and secrets per level. Unlike Pizza Tower, White has 6 different NPCs to talk to and interact with after each mission. Giving them collectibles increases their relationship meter, which unlocks more collectibles, special levels, and secret cutscenes. Cutscenes that feature classic anime tropes like the beach episode, karaoke, and watching The Matrix with the bros. There's a John Cena joke in the game at some point, and like, are they allowed to do that? Is John Cena public domain? Can you monetize John Cena? Can I monetize John Cena? Where do we draw the line?
Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
Pizza Tower is a playable cartoon, while Neon White is a playable anime. Everything in Calzone Tower is about delivering the idea of playing a zany cartoon character in a cartoony world. The goofy title cards before each level, the different character transformations, the mechanics focused on speed and movement, whatever the heck is going on here. It's all about hitting that feeling of being in a cartoon. Everything on Neon Beyond is about delivering the idea of playing a cool, edgy anime character from a cool, edgy anime. The slick punk character and world designs, the tropes of dubbed anime, the weird sexual tension between the protagonist and the antagonist, and the epic one-on-one showdowns with a lot of teleporting for some reason. Everything on Neon White is about feeling like you're playing an anime. The inspirations and influences of both games come from the same time period within the same mediums, but they still offer their own unique original ideas and concepts into the ever-growing genre of speed-based platformers. Same inspirations, same genre of game, same homage and love for their influences, same love of art and love of video games.
Video games.
Two sides of the same coin. Now, could Zaza Tower benefit from an anime visual novel style story, with Peppino giving gifts to anime babes and learning about the tragic backstories of Gustavo, Noise, and the pizza golf ball? Absolutely yes. Could Neon White benefit from slapstick humor that turns White into a glob of cheese, and with a button to Family Guy pose whenever you want? Yes, absolutely. But both games are still excellent on their own. It's amazing how the very same mediums and time periods in life can inspire us in what we create as we age. Two games completely different initially have the same beating hearts of admiration for animation in 2000s media. Growing up in the 2000s, I was naturally glued to cartoons and anime, which makes sense as to why I would naturally gravitate to both of these games. The themes, aesthetics, and ideas of some of my favorite childhood shows like Edda and Eddie, and the tone and vibe of my very first video game system, the Dreamcast, shine through the adventures of the anxiety-ridden Italian man and the trials and tribulations of the Skrillex-looking emo dude. So of course I completely fell in love with both of the games. They're the amalgamation of everything I loved growing up. Artists take ideas that inspire them and mold them into new concepts and ideas. I don't know if I fully agree with the concept of there are no new ideas, but I will say if that sentence is true, then ideas can still bend and morph in different ways to represent the unique individuals that create them. Same same ideas, same inspirations, vastly different executions. 2000s animation inspired Pizza Tower and Neon White. Neon White and Pizza Tower inspired me to create this video. Human expression and creativity can come from anywhere, everywhere, anything, and anyone. In a medium with boundless creativity like video games, it makes complete sense that these two games are what they are, and they came out at the time that they did. I can't wait to see a few years from now, and maybe even sooner, the games, animations, music, and just stories in general that will be made, and the ideas that will be explored because of the people inspired by these two phenomenal games. Okay, time. 1519, not bad, that's a new PB.